Hello, my Astro family. This is Lada from astrolada.com here with the yearly predictions for 2020. And the year in astrology starts with the first day of the spring equinox. And I want to bring you a message of hope. I know we're in the middle of a big mess. We're in the middle of a spiritual warfare, by the way, that is happening. But out of this, something beautiful can be born. And we're going to speak about predictions for the world, what beautiful things can come, and also what things on a more negative level we can expect, but how we can benefit and how we can align with the positive developments that are likely to emerge. And I want to raise your vibration a little bit and calm down your fears, because we are surrounded by so much fear now. And we'll refer to history, we'll refer to spiritual sources, we'll refer to scientific sources, we'll use all of that astrological sources to raise the vibration. So thank you for joining me. And please, God, bless this world on this special day of the spring equinox, where a new dispensation of energy is flowing to the earth and to the humans here, where the new program for the next 12 months is being encoded. And we're in the midst of fear, paranoia, lockdown, but you've got an amazing plan for us, God. And let us align to this amazing plan and manifest the highest vibration of it. But let's go back to the astrology and spirituality of it. Why are we in the middle of such crazy times right now? Why exactly now? Because this year, there are 5 cycles at the same time that are ending and starting. And specifically this March, we are, and actually from January till April, this window of time from January till April, there were 4 cycles that we saw that are completing, and 4 new cycles ending, astrological cycles. One of them is Pluto-Saturn cycle, which is 36 years. The other one is Pluto-Jupiter, which is 13 years. The other one was Saturn-Mars, which is happening now in the end of March, the beginning of April, which is 2 years. And the other one is Jupiter-Mars, which is happening exactly now as we speak, which is 2 years. Usually, there will be every few years or every year one of those smaller cycles ending and a new one starting. Cycle is when 2 planets join together. So a new cycle starts, a new programming. When 2 planets come together, it's like copulation. They create new program. And if, we astrologers believe that the planets, the stars, they're not just empty bodies, physical dead bodies. They represent spiritual forces that are sending us messages, that are reprogramming the earth every time to bodily, two heavenly bodies come together. According to their nature, there is new encoding, new programming for humanity that happens. And some of those cycles are so huge, like the Jupiter-Saturn cycle. We are under the change of the Jupiter-Saturn cycle the whole 2020, even though it's happening at the end of 2020. The whole year is considered, because it's such a long cycle. So such a long cycle is starting in the air permutations. So a huge shift in humanity. It's happening. When there is one cycle changing, okay, something big can happen, but nothing of the sort we're observing currently. Nothing of that sort, because what happens when you put a few waves scientifically, one on top of the other, there is a resonance. They don't expand just double when 2 waves come together. They expand way more. They expand geometrically, the vibration, the resonance, so-called. And when you have 5 cycles, and currently, as I said, those 3, actually Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, Mars, Jupiter, Mars, we're in the middle also of Saturn, Pluto. Those 3 are most active, but this one is active the whole year. So now this pivotal moment in the spring, the end of the winter in Northern Hemisphere, the spring, all those cycles coincided. And they're kind of coming to an end, and new ones are starting. And spiritual researchers, they know people who develop the ability to see into the invisible worlds. And if you think it's mumbo jumbo, just listen to it as a fairy tale. See how your body corresponds to that, how you react to that. But spiritual researchers, they know, especially if you read Rudolf Steiner and such, they're philosophers. They're not just some psychics with a crystal ball. So they know that when astrological cycles end, the new ones start, they've noticed that there is first something happens in the invisible worlds, because everything trickles down from the invisible worlds, where the visible world is 1%. The invisible world, where everything else is created, where everything is in potential, uh, are the rest 99%. So they have seen that when there is endings of huge astrological cycles, and some cycles are 2,000 years old, like the age of Aquarius, the age of Pisces. There's cycles within cycles. There cycles 400 years old and 300. But now we're at such pivotal time where we're shifting from one cycle, Pisces into Aquarius. I forgot to mention that big one. Of course, that was the biggest one, the Aquarius age, which is 2,100 years. So we're shifting. It doesn't happen in 1 year. This one, the shift from one age to another takes 200-300 years, So we're in the midst of that. You can feel it, the age of Aquarius. We've spoken about that many times, but we're in the midst of this huge cycle, then in the midst of this cycle, then in the midst of this cycle, then specifically now, this month and next month, these 2 months, in the midst of those 3 other cycles, what is happening? I mean, major shift in the spiritual levels. They say that spiritual wars happen then in the invisible realms. Why is that? Because there is forces that are allowed to have control on Earth, that are allowed to, let's say, interfere. And the dark forces, they interfere forcefully against the human free will, without them knowing. There is dark lodges of beings that work against the plan of creation of God. And there is white lodges, ascended masters, spiritual beings, archangels, angels, call them whatever you want. Some call them good aliens, the Galactic Federation. Every age has a different name for them, but these are those evolved beings that don't even need physical bodies anymore, that maybe have never had such because they never had needed this vibration. And they're ruling, they're playing chess basically. But they're not always the same forces that rule over us. If you've done spiritual research, you know that, for example, in the 19th century, Archangel Michael came as a leader of the white forces, the ones that are helping humanity, those that are aligned to constructively fulfilling the will of God, to constructively helping humanity. They get the inspiration they tap to those higher power and get the inspiration and leadership powers and strength from currently the Archangel Michael hosts. Before that, there was another archangel. I can't tell. It's too much of a topic. I'm not going to go into that. But also the dark forces, they're overlords. They're dark overlords that are in the invisible realms. They'll also change. Listen to this as a story. We'll get after that to the world predictions. Maybe you'll find it much more interesting, much more concrete. Now we have a lot of Capricorns, so a lot of people probably don't like unscientific mumbo jumbo storytelling, but I like that. I want to start with that. Maybe it will give you some kind of different idea how I'm seeing reality and why am I making those predictions. So currently, and they saw that big astrological cycles are when they align, this is when there is big shift in the powers above, the positive, the negative ones, and above them is God. God uses both the positive and the negatives for the plan of advancing humanity. God, to the highest creative power, allowed Lucifer, whatever forces they're called, to separate from light, and to remain behind in evolution, and to be allowed to trip humanity with all kind of things, with pollution, with greed, with pedophilia, with all the, imagine all the dark things, imagine all the, and not so dark things, addictions and temptations of any sort, lies to control, wars and stuff like that. These things exist. It's not all light and love, but God allowed it because there is no growth without resistance, without friction. It's if you're only in paradise, you stay innocent, and there's no evolvement of consciousness. And therefore, both forces, they use above from the divine for the highest plan of raising humanity. So don't worry, everything is in control as it should be. And it might be horrible and it might be painful, it might be disgusting what some forces, darker forces, are making. But even that, God takes it and turns it to the positive, and we'll look historically how this has happened. But we are currently at such a pivotal sixth cycle ending, a new 6 cycles beginning. And it is incrementally increased. But I want to tell you that out of every crisis, and you all know it, comes opportunity. Even last time there was Jupiter-Pluto conjunction 13 years ago, 2017, 2008. So 2007, 2018, the financial crisis happens. This is often an indication of financial crisis. Jupiter rules wealth, Pluto rules crisis. The financial crisis happened, and of course there was a lot of stress, a lot of pain, but a lot of new businesses. A lot of people found their true vocation. You find inner wealth then, and inner resources that you are not aware of. Pluto is something hidden very deeply. Jupiter is wealth and abundance, and you are forced during such period. If you can't consciously go there, you are forced by the spiritual powers above, by the manifestation that happens on earth as a result here, because it always trickles from above. Remember, there is a change of powers above from the forces that are going to dispense the energies to the earth. It's like they're changing their council, they're rearranging their round table with who's going to be the CEO currently. The white lodges and the black lodges, they work, how do I say, almost like together. They respect each other, so to speak, or they work basically against each other, but even they at the highest level, they know they're serving a higher plan, and they have to do that. So no blaming here, even though it's so tempting to do it, because you hear some of the things that are in plan, but you hear some of the things that are also prepared to counteract those plans by the white forces. All right, so Pluto Jupiter often corresponds to financial crisis, but it's also in this crisis is the nugget of financial abundance that comes, the opportunity for new wealth to appear. So now also wealth is being redistributed. I told you in December when I made the 2020 videos, huge money will be lost and huge money will be made in 2020 because of all the alignments. And now the dynasties are shifting, the ruling powers, because above they're shifting, so below they'll shift again as well. The ruling families, the ruling governments, the people in power that we used to see that have been there for years and years, they will be, or generations even, there is a big shift. So their final kind of in the thrall of trying to preserve, and this is also indicated by the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. Saturn is control, governments, people in that on top of the elite that control the 1%. Pluto is again distraction, crisis, draconian measures are being taken to control this, this shift that is happening, but it's inevitable. As they said, it's controlled. As much as they think they have power here to control world events, above there is much more powerful forces that flow. But big wealth, so don't get scared. Yes, economic crisis happening, Jupiter, Pluto, and it probably is gonna continue 2021, as many astrologers predict, because then Saturn and Jupiter will square Uranus in Taurus, the sign of money. So this will be the start of maybe cashless society. A lot of people are scared of that because it's limitation of freedoms of any sort. But again, the positive can be extracted of that, and lots of wealth and abundance can be created. And those who want can stay independent. Those who want can find ways. There is always a way to use whatever is happening, even by the darker forces that are trying to enslave or control, which there exist. No, the easiest way to control is to scare people, is to put regulations and rules. When I scare my children from the mice or whatever, they fall asleep much faster. They listen to me, they immediately go to sleep. It's so much easier to control when you scare. So they're geniuses to do that, to create the fear and to, the fear is there. Yes, there is a virus. Yes, the economic crisis, but it's overblown up. But that is a plan, and that is, I guess, always part of the strategy. And again, we never change unless we are feeling very scared, I would say, or very pushed at the corner. But there is big wealth to be created, I want to say again, if you're resourceful. And plus, Pluto helps you and forces you to find your inner deep resources of wealth, new qualities that you are not aware of, and to build something new. So, as I said, some people can start making money through new businesses, through new ideas that come to you. Watch out in the next few weeks, in the start of April or the whole 2020, Jupiter Pluto will conjoin each other 3 times. So do watch what those new transformational, first there will be a big change of your beliefs. Pluto is your beliefs fundamentally, what you believe is possible for you, what you believe is possible for the world. Pluto totally destroys the old beliefs and builds new ones from the ashes. So when there is a total shift in the collective belief system, what happens is people start believing that other things are possible, things that they thought were not possible before they start thinking they're possible. And again, that's why because forces know that the darker forces that now it's time to big shifts of beliefs, and they're trying to use that to scare people in their belief systems, into negative outlook, into fear mongering, crashes the economy. Yes, those things can happen, but there is always after every crisis, there's been an amazing positive repercussions as well for humanity. We'll speak about that in a little bit as well. So don't worry and watch the whole 2020. Again, as I said, a lot of incredible ideas for wealth, for knowledge. Jupiter is knowledge. For wisdom will appear, will be born, will be from the depth of people's souls, And of course, big money is changing hands in the hidden governments, and Pluto is also the deep state and those hidden forces, the 0.01% that is in shadow that controls the ultimate controlling force. And money is being, with Jupiter there, wealth, money is being redistributed again. But also even the normal hoi polloi person can catch that wave, So don't think you are at the mercy of outer forces only. But let's not diverge too much. I wanted to tell you why now the spirit is so pivotal, why there is so much fear as well, and why there is actually great opportunity in it. But the most important thing that is happening now in the spring equinox is another new cycle. Okay, there is another one. Saturn is moving into Aquarius. It goes there once every 29 years, and it's going to be there till July, and then we'll dip back into Capricorn, but we'll get a taste of what this means. And I want to mostly focus on Saturn in Aquarius for the world predictions I'm going to make now. And before that, just to tell you that since we're all going to be staying at home in April and part of March, and since it's my birthday, and since I don't know what else to do for you guys, and since I've been sick, or I had like a miscarriage, and for 1 month I couldn't work, emotionally I had to deal with things, even I had a personal crisis. And it's been heavy, but out of this crisis, amazing. I received so much internal power. Again, this is crisis that leads to internal strength, to finding new resources within yourself. I was given such amazing ideas, and I had a business crisis. YouTube demonetized my channel because of the content that I speak about, and we'll speak about that. How with Saturn in Aquarius, this will be one of the agenda: control freedom of speech, control freedom of people. Aquarius is freedom, and they're trying to do that. Hopefully they'll monetize, but I doubt it, especially with the topics that I like to talk about, which are keywords like that trigger their machines. But I've developed an amazing different business plan out of this crisis, and it's and I want to teach you as well how to align yourself when a crisis happens in your life. Even with the loss of a baby that we really wanted, something beautiful was born out of it, which is very personal for me to say, but which changed my psychology, changed my whole belief system. So out of the biggest tragedies, currently we're in a period that feels like one of the biggest tragedies, some of the most beautiful things are born. And I personally, because I experienced it, a brand new business idea is born for me. I'm working on it, a brand new outlook on the world, a brand new spiritual connection, and such things, but it also happened and brand new source of wealth as well. So when a tragedy happens, yes, you can be sad. Yes, you can wallow in fear for a little bit, but then you have to gather that anger, that sadness, that those all the powerful negative emotions that are triggered, and harness them towards finding a solution and overcoming that and taking it to the next level, which is always much better than the level you were on before. So let's go to Saturn in Aquarius that is happening now, and it's going to shift fully in December together with Jupiter. And for the next 2-3 years, we're going to see the following changes. First of all, what is Saturn? Okay, I've written some keywords behind. And by the way, yes, I said that I'm doing April big discounts up to 50% of some of my courses. So stay at home and study with me. If you like the way I teach, if you like what I can offer, I offer you now to learn the foundations of astrology. I have foundational courses. I have courses that are more advanced as well. Everything you need of astrology, you learn it from ABC. And I think I'm a pretty good teacher. Very repetitive, but pretty good and explain to the bottom. So let's see some keywords about Aquarius and Saturn. Aquarius, as you can see, wow, very global economy, social system, economic system, business networks. Wow, you see why the world is starting to change, guys. What is happening? And Saturn is restructuring, reorganization, or the limitations. So you can see that often in Aquarius and Saturn periods, when we look back in old times when Saturn was in Aquarius, one of the worst manifestations that can happen is very controlling world systems appearing. Aquarius is very ideological. Aquarius is very conceptual, theoretical. And Saturn, of course, is government. So people in power. So people in power come to them that can have either really amazing concepts and ideologies, really kind of futuristic utopian that can help humanity, that can help those in need, or the opposite. The law of vibration of Saturn is dystopian society of government controls in Aquarius Saturn, which are dystopian, which are united by some crazy beliefs. Is crazy. Aquarius is not so much belief system; it's kind of whole ideological systems and concepts. And what happened? Saturn was in Aquarius, for example, 1933, that was the rise of Mao Zedong. That was the rise of Hitler came into power and started his regime, his crazy dystopian society. Then Stalin started it's some kind of, starving the Russians, and his power came as well. So some kind of utopian, not dystopian. This is the New World Order, or Orwellian societies, they call them, like 1994, or like David I calls them Hunger Games society, Hunger Game social order can come at such periods. This is the scariest possible manifestation. But there is the positive side of it. And what can happen? So I'm not saying Hitler will come back, but the government or people in power will try, Saturn's people in power, will try to control a lot more the social system, the freedom of movements of people. Aquarius is freedoms. Will try to control a lot more the business networks, to control a lot more internet systems. Aquarius is the internet, YouTube, freedom of speech. And they're already starting to do it. With so many YouTubers that are speaking things that are considered fake news or controversial or not in line with the official, news, are being silenced, their channels are being stopped, demonetized. And YouTube is probably right to do so, because the government is pushing this on them, or they'll close their business too. So I'm feeling the repercussions as well, but again, I have a way out. So there's always a positive something. We always have to look for it. They'll be trying to impose governments, a plan for new world order. Often this is the periods when some new brave deals and new world order is given, some kind of to take us out of a crisis. Often crises happen when Saturn is in Capricorn for some reason, like the Great Depression, for example. And then the new system is introduced when Saturn comes in Aquarius, because Aquarius rules all kinds of systems that are complex, economical, biological, ecological, nervous system. Aquarius rules the nervous system, the brain, the internet, any system that doesn't have a center, not centralized system, interestingly enough, that every cog, that no one is exceptional, but everyone is important in the system. So it's kind of complicated. The markets are ruled by Aquarius. The complex system, marketplace, global markets are ruled. So there will be what is Saturn, restructuring, regulations, control in those areas, sanctions as well, laws, and all of those things can happen. But at the same time, when there is pressure on humans, when there is, and of course the Great Depression happened on Saturn, was in Capricorn in 1929, but it was really most painful when Saturn was in Aquarius, the suppression Saturn of economy, Aquarius. And then what happened is that a great came out of it. What is that? Because I remind you, yes, there might be dark forces that are trying to impose a new world order, regulations, restrictions, easy to control people. Just like parents know that when children are scared and docile, they're much more easy to control. They have more peace. They can watch Netflix, we can be tempted to use the same measures. Why not the ones in power as well? But yes, they'll be trying to do cashless society, though. Maybe they will succeed. Very likely they will. And new economic world order and the collapse of the financial systems. Always after collapse of financial system, people want and demand new financial system. And the dark forces will try to impose their most oppressive rules. But don't forget, we all speak about the Illuminati and the Satanists and the governments, the pedophiles, and the ones that worship some dark force or that worship greed, but no one speaks about the actual white workers that are also part. God would never just create us and leave us with the dark forces only to control us. God always will send spiritual warriors here on earth as well that represent the white forces. And I've spoken with people in great power, billionaire families, who told me that there is a spiritual warfare, that there is billionaire families that belong to black lodges and to dark nefarious circles and to control and stuff. But she said, and she was a very spiritual person, religious, and she turned to me and she said, but don't be afraid, lad. And I was like, why? Because she said, I'm from one of the wealthiest families. And this is not a fake story. Honestly, I know this person. It's an Italian lady from an old Italian billionaire family. And she said, you don't know that the forces of power are just as strong. We're also working. And she says, why no one is talking about the powerful white, almost like magicians that are here? Some of them are in government, some of them are in big business, some of them are normal people that walk around us, like who are awakening people from the lower levels. And she says the white force is way stronger always than the dark force. They balance each other out. And she says now the dark force are a bit more stronger. It's allowed, but it's what happens is that if you've read Richard Dawkins, I think, he talks about the calibration of consciousness, the levels of consciousness. And he says that it's only necessary for 10% to raise their consciousness above the certain vibration of fear into vibration of acceptance, harmony, love. They're the high vibrations. And then they'll raise the other 90%, and still more than 90% of humanity live on the emotional scale of constant vibration below acceptance, harmony. They live into fear, into lack, into depression. More than 90% of humanity. Very few people live above. Very few people, and they're less than 10% still, but they're growing faster. And he saw a social phenomenon, which was amazing. He says, when more than 10% start rising their vibration, they pull the other 90 with them up. Wow. It's also like the 100 monkey syndrome. They taught 100 monkeys to peel potatoes. And then the other 900 monkeys on the island, without being taught, they started doing it. It's almost like some collective, when you accept something and when you raise a vibration, when you learn something, when a certain mass of humanity or a species learns a knowledge or accepts or understands something or raises their consciousness, like it goes into the collective unconscious and raises the consciousness of the other 90%. So you're the spiritual warriors. You're the ones trying to change yourself, to raise your vibration, to think about positive things, to meditate, to learn astrology, to learn about invisible worlds, to learn about all those things. So you remove the fear from you. You're the ones that you're raising the other 90%. We're the ones doing it. Don't think we're insignificant, guys, in those times. Don't think that you playing on your YouTube or just reading online that this is insignificant, because you think, well, the world around me is falling apart. How can I change anything? I can't just go and protest on the streets. You don't even have to go and protest. All you need, as spiritual science tells us, is to raise your consciousness yourself, not to allow fear and the low vibrations. You can go online and check the calibration of feelings, which feelings start to vibrate positive and which are on the negative vibration. But it's very obvious. The feelings that make you feel good are the ones that raise the rest of humanity. So you have a responsibility towards your own vibrational, your own emotional vibration, and you will raise the rest. You will raise. You don't have to do huge things of heroism. You don't have to risk your life. That's what is needed for you to do, the raise of your own vibration. But let's not forget that, yes, when Aquarius comes, that there can be some really draconic, what Saturn in Aquarius, really draconic rules for limiting of our freedoms from governments, and really kind of dystopian movements starting to happen, or suppression of truth as well, suppression of knowledge and individual voices. But on the other side, what happens when you press really hard something? This is Saturn. Saturn is pressure. You're restricting something very much. You're pressing it into the corner. Well, it's the law of science. When there is resistance, there is the opposite resistance. Oh my God, I don't know how it's called. You push and the thing pushes back. You don't, until you push something, it's not going to push back against you. So when they push people in the corner, of course, a lot of people would accept that because they're too scared, because there is fear. They give up their freedoms willingly. They accept the new regulations after a crisis willingly, which limit, or which a lot more surveillance, big brother societies, Aquarius in Saturn very often. But when you push a lot of other people, they're like, no, I cannot be in this corner. I'm claustrophobic. If I'm pushed in the corner, I scream, bite, kick, and I can kill the other. I can literally kill the other, whether it's my closest person. So a lot of people who have a lot more need for freedom, a lot more, the inner voice of truth is very strong. When they push at the corner, the opposite happens. So some of the most beautiful movements for human rights have been organized during Saturn in Aquarius. For example, 1961 or 62, civil rights movements was legalized. Saturn is also to legalize something, to be accepted. So finally, the voiceless people of African Americans were able to have their voice heard. This is when Luther King said, I have a dream speech, when Saturn was in Aquarius. Aquarius rules dreams, a goal of the future, a vision of community. So this is when Saturn comes into Aquarius, when these things start getting accepted, those new visions, those new concepts of utopian, of beautiful, of connected humanity, of rights for everything, when they start being heard by everyone, when they start becoming a force, when they start resisting. Saturn is resistance. So you see how Saturn in Aquarius can be the darkest, the utopian, the forces that enslave you, the freedom of societies and whatnot. And it's the opposite, is the reaction that gives birth to the most beautiful coming together of masses. Aquarius is large groups of people for a common goal come together to legalize something, Saturn, to create new laws. There was also in 1932-33, when was the rise of Hitler, Mussolini, and Mao Zedong, those regimes that were monstrous, dystopian. The same time in India, Gandhi started his hunger strike. The same time in India, this was the beginning of the liberation of the Indian people of an oppressor. And a movement, a peaceful movement was born. So people came together. People came behind him. And they change things, whatever the order of those above us, and we think, oh, we can't change it. Don't worry, Saturn in Aquarius will awaken a lot of us to the unfairness, to the towards society, as us as individuals, our freedoms. Aquarius is us as a society, as a community, our collective connection together, and how much we care for each other. And Saturn entering into Aquarius, and especially from the end of 2020, when Jupiter also enters, oh my God, there will be such an awakening of people. There will be, I get so excited, because there will be such strong imposition of new world orders, new rules, but there will be influx of new beautiful ideas, new inspired people, new communities will start being born, communities that are connected, and they'll be legalized, and this force cannot be stopped. It's bigger than the powers that controls, yes, there is the black cabal and whatever, but they're 0.01%. We're 99%, and the collective conscious is so much more powerful. So yes, we'll see more, and let's see some of the positive things. They can be restrictions, for example, on certain market, on certain financial, because Aquarius rules more global market. They can be certain restrictions in regards to that, but they can be also more regulations that come out to be good. They can be more control, more legalization of civil rights movements, legalization of labor unions. I forgot to tell you again. So one was Gandhi during Saturn in Aquarius that rolls. Another one was the labor movement in those 1932-33. So the labor movement, the rights of workers, was born for the first time. Till then, workers did not have rights. The Great Depression gave birth to that. Just as interesting, before, when in the Middle Ages, Saturn was in a Capricorn with Jupiter and with Pluto, the plague came. And then Saturn went into Aquarius. And after half the population in Europe had died, so crisis first happens, one of the best things happened for those that remained alive in Europe. Of course, it was a tragedy. It's like every second person dies. But those that left before the great, and the whole restructure started happening in Saturn in Aquarius, when there was no one to work the fields, and suddenly workers, from being slaves and serfs to the owners of the land, they became owners of the land themselves. So serfdom disappeared. The human were nothing more in the Middle Ages before that than slaves to the big owners, landowners, the elite, so to speak. But when there was this crisis with them as well, Saturn with Jupiter in Capricorn, before Saturn and Jupiter moved into Aquarius in the 15th or 16th century, something like that. I have to check the date to tell you, but I've studied the history of it. So this was amazing for the rights of human beings. Serfdom, which means being a slave, stopped. They started getting bigger wages because there were not enough workers and such things. So similar thing also. Yes, the crisis of the 1930s, the early 1930s was devastating. Families were starving, and there was 25% unemployment. But out of this, something beautiful was born as well. One of the beautiful things was the labor movements, the rights, finally, of workers, fixed wages and prices, because before that nothing was fixed. So it's one can get paid $5, the other one $10. It's like, so fixed prices and wages. Also, because so many people lost money in the banks with this crisis. Another rule, which is against Saturn, new economic rule, Aquarius is economy, Saturn rule, was introduced from the government, which is guarantee of bank deposits of people. Before that, there was nothing like that, and banks were dropping down like mayflies, and people would lose all their monies. But now we're guaranteed, and we've been since the That time Saturn was in Aquarius, by banks that if we lose, if the bank closes, we can retrieve this, there is a guarantee of the deposit, basically, of people. Also, Social Security, or the New Deal, it's called, was introduced then. A lot of people would argue that it's horrible, that the New Deal is not good. But what is the New Deal that was introduced with Saturn in Aquarius? This was Social Security. Before that, no one had pensions. Old people had to rely on their children to take care of them. If you had no money, you can't go to the hospital. No social welfare. Poor children, you starve. Oh, they were selling children. Buy 7 children on the street of New York. Buy children for $20 or whatever. Parents could not feed them. But the New Deal was introduced with Saturn in Aquarius, which guaranteed, like now we have WIC, if you don't have enough money, you can get food for your children. And of course, pensions were introduced. Now the elderly have pensions, even if they have not worked. I don't know how viable it is. I hope they're able to survive the economic crisis now. But, this protected the elderly, the weak. So social welfare was introduced with Saturn in Aquarius. The sick children, the elderly, the poor. So you see some amazing innovations happen that help the human welfare. It's not all doom and gloom. It's not all some dark cabal that controls us, because we reverberate, we fight back, we start social movements during those periods. And no matter how powerful they are, how easy they manipulate us, how easy they create force, when the collective vibration starts to rise, and oh by God, Saturn in Aquarius and Jupiter in Aquarius is going to start doing the collective, rising the collective vibration. First, maybe Saturn will lower the vibration with fear, because that's the law of vibration of Saturn. Always the lowest manifestation of a planet first comes in, because collectively our vibration is generally lower. But once this low vibration is first becomes something that, okay, it's like we've been under quarantine for 2 months, like it can't carry on like that or whatever, or it's like life, you can't constantly live in this increased fear. So then the vibration starts rising, and you start manifesting the higher. We as humanity start manifesting the higher manifestation of Saturn in Aquarius. So I think also there'll be a lot of new laws, Saturn is laws, introduced for the ecology system, the ecology, the planet. This is again Aquarius. The planet is one system, interconnected system with biological entities, So there will be new laws. These are some of the good things we can expect. People will demand it. People will require it. New laws and regulations for the ecology, for nature. New laws and regulations for the economic system. Also, it's very interesting that Aquarius is the sign of market participation. And Saturn in Aquarius is known to allow gradually, not all at once, but new opportunities that are gradually, with regulation, introduced to allow more people, the normal people, the hoi polloi, as we call them, Aquarius, the average Joe like you and me, to participate in the market system, and we already have such things happening in place, like Uber, like Airbnb, where people can connect on one network from all over the world and start almost like becoming business owners through those tools that Aquarius provides, the network, the internet, through large business connections. It's fantastic as well this time for taking care of our nervous system. Aquarius rules the nervous system. First, problems will really escalate with the nervous systems of people, because Saturn shows where there is a problem, something has been neglected. But then the high vibration of Saturn is, I'm going to fix it, I'm going to correct it, I'm going to take care of it, I'm going to take responsibility. So we're going to start taking responsibility and trying to fix our nervous system collectively, because that's, so many nervous conditions around the world. We're going to come with a lot of scientific advancements. And talking about scientific advancements, Aquarius is science, innovation, experiment. Saturn is natural ruler of Aquarius, and Saturn is very regulated science. So often there's some of the most amazing scientific discoveries when Saturn is in Aquarius. Let me give you an example. In the 30s, when Saturn was in Aquarius, exactly the year, the atom was split. all the amazing advancements that happened from the splitting of the atom, and some of horrific advancements like the atomic bomb as well. But another thing, um, oh my God, I've lost my list where I wrote the scientific advancements that happened with Saturn. Sorry, with Saturn in Aquarius. I had a huge, beautiful list. The first web browser was introduced with Saturn in Aquarius. So expect one of those amazing scientific advancements as well to happen. The positive manifestation of Saturn is to take responsibility. So what are we going to take collectively as humans, and the politicians and those in power will be forced to follow our collective energy. What are we going to be forced? What are we going to force them to take more responsibility of? Because we're going to feel more responsible. This will be societies, this will be humanity as a whole. Take care of the weak, of the unprotected. We'll take our social responsibility way more seriously. When Jupiter comes and joins Saturn, we'll embrace it with even more joy. We will, and you see already the solidarity with which people unite with the coronavirus, against the nurses, against the whole communities, the elderly, the solidarity of the whole world, you know. And this is only the start. So many good things can come out of that. They can be the rise of movements for social work, for new economic systems as well. And as much as they're going to try to impose on us an economic system that is best for the ones in power, the elite, as they say, to control, they can't fully control that process. A lot of ingenious people come with great ideas, with new ways of economy. And Aquarius is independence. The more our independence is being restricted now, freedom, Saturn, the more we rebel, and the more you'll see a huge shift from 2021, when there is like basically, when a lot of people decide to leave the system. With a lot of people, I speak about that in my 2020 video, check it out. I explain it much more in depth. I don't want to go too much into this now to repeat myself. A lot of people will split from the system, want to be independent, and will try to find their own, and they can be part of they'll join in communities somehow. Because when Saturn is in Aquarius and then Jupiter, you don't try to do things alone. And that's a program for the next 20 years again. You don't just go and live alone in the forest with your gun and with your garden. Yes, you can do that, but not for the majority of people. You go and do that in society. There'll be like whole towns that are separating. So people coming together in groups of 100, or families that are connected by ideological beliefs, that want to be independent from the system, that want to create their own businesses and not rely on Walmart or water or electricity or government. And they'll try to separate. I'm not saying we'll become a hippie society. It will be way more organized, way more systemized, and the government will allow that, because Saturn legalizes the needs of Aquarius, which is to revolutionize society, to change the economy. So people will create their own economic system. You know, if they want to, there is an opportunity. They will be able. They will create their own separate economic system from the main economic system. And separate social communities and life, basically, that they can do, like a new vision, new concepts that will be born. But Saturn also makes you materialize it and make it real, concrete, to put into concrete steps, ideals, concept, theories. Some of you maybe have heard of movements like Thrive and whatever. They have whole concepts of future cities, how they're going to live, how community, how they will be connected, how everything will be communal. Sounds a bit communistic, but it's not. And it's very scientific as well. Such things will start coming after this collapse financial, after the end of this new old era, you know. And of course, the other darker things that we talked about, they will be there, like trying to control the freedom, the speech. But this is exactly what's going to push the opposite movement. Revolutions, you know, but regulated revolutions. There will be more, you know, just those revolutions, they will manifest, but they won't be as bloody, I hope. You know, they will be more like, they would force the governments to put laws and regulations to accept those new things. And the governments will be trying to make us accept things as well. Of course, Aquarius is also alternative knowledge. There might be restrictions on alternative knowledge, on alternative information, on alternative, anything that's on the cutting edge, that is not, that's out of the norm, that is not part of traditional science. It might be, try to be regulated, to be restricted. And that can be good sometimes. A lot of hoax healers, even hoax, astrologers and such, like, I mean, someone calls us all astrologers hoax. So there might be a great push to regulating astrology website, spiritual wisdom website, anything that is not scientific. And there will be a great pushback and resistance, guys, as well. So you can't stop that process. Plus, astrology can be legalized in some way, or all kind of they'll start trying to legalize or put kind of regulations and control gradually on things that are very marginal, that are very alternative healing methods. First, they'll try to suppress it. This is the first initial at Saturn. Oh, let me suppress it, and then it's like, okay, it's too much. We can't suppress it. It's springing out from everywhere. So we need to put regulations. Okay, so we're going to accept this, but you have to have those and those rules, maybe make it very difficult, but to jump through a lot of hoops for businesses that are alternative knowledge, alternative astrology. They can make it way more complicated for someone like me, for someone who kills cancer with whatever seeds or vibrational waves. But there will be put new regulations, and you'll be able to apply over the next 2-3 years, step by step, to be approved, to be kind of, let's say, scientifically certified almost, in a sense. And I think there will be great steps toward, and actually the next 20 years, because Saturn Jupiter cycles will affect us for 20 years. And there will be legalization of alternative knowledge, or regular regulations in that direction. And astrology, I think a lot of very traditional astrology will come back. Deeper research astrology will become more scientific, more regulated, maybe in some ways. Some astrology institutions almost will appear. Let's see. But I guess the last thing you care about is what's going to happen about astrology, speaking about the world diseases. And I haven't told you anything about the coronavirus, but we've made 4 or 5 videos already with predictions. Nicola Stojanovic says it will be finished by July. Some other astrologers say that it will be around for 2-3 years, but the peaks is now, and then maybe in the autumn, and then it will be fine. And a lot of the astrologers says most of the repercussions will be the economic system. I'm not sure. I cannot tell you. I haven't done diseases, but I told you at the start of 2020, before all this happened, Saturn Pluto is pandemics, crisis, and viruses like AIDS happen, like the plague, and such things can happen during such years. But again, our responsibility in those periods is to take care of our own vibrational field. And it doesn't mean sit in a cave and meditate to raise the collective vibration. Maybe this will help. I mean, if you can do it. It means when you are at Costco buying and there is an older woman, and let her move before you. This is a spiritual activity, instead of fighting over toilet paper or whatever. I see so many people bickering over spiritual topics, over astrology, even over things that should be the holiest of holies, and we bicker over them. And instead of allowing those things to annoy you, to start on online to fight with each other, to impose opinions. And by the way, when Saturn is in Aquarius, people become so stubborn with their opinions. They already are, but they'll become more bigoted. And Pluto with Jupiter, it's fanatical beliefs. Pluto is fanatical, extreme to the extremism. Jupiter is beliefs. So you'll see a lot of that this year. You see a lot, but your responsibility is to stay out of that. Your responsibility is to develop. Saturn in Aquarius high manifestation is detachment. I'm observing like a scientist. I always see the Aquarius energy as the observed, detached, and especially Saturn in Aquarius, like the witness within. There might be turbulence, stars, being accused, the world falling around you. And you still sometimes feel that something within you on a very deep level does not move. It's still. It's seeing all this chaos. I even remember when I was told that the baby is not alive inside. And of course, I cried outside internally, but I told my husband later on the next day, I said, in the midst of tears and crying, there was something still inside me that was watching it. It was watching it like a movie, and it knew it was still, and it looked at it like in a detached way. And I was like, and this thing appears, this detached witness is known to appear in the moments of biggest tragedies. It's like it gives you this presence of for the moment that in the midst of the biggest crisis, like we're having this, and a lot of people are starting to feel it. And you're going to start feeling it even more now. The moment Saturn enters Aquarius, maybe it has entered it already. And you start seeing that everything around you is falling apart. But if you're using the high manifestation of Saturn in Aquarius, this internal witness becomes so detached, and you get into the Zen state of almost like dispassion, disconnection from emotions. It doesn't mean you don't have emotions. It means you have them, you feel them, but you are not destroyed by them. And that's the difference in crisis. Those that allow to be destroyed by the intensity of fear and emotions. Say someone, let me give you a personal life example. For example, someone loses a loved one, their husband dies, or their wife leaves, or they say, I'll never love again. I was devastated emotionally. I'll never allow this. They allow the feelings to cloud everything else and to make them suffer for the whole life. Or maybe not suffer, but not to experience that joy again. Or someone loses a child, huge tragedy, and you never recover. You stay in that. You can pain 20, 30 years as well, but I've seen incredible women. They lose their precious thing, and 3-4 years down the line, they find a meaningful purpose in life. They create miracles. They rise up again. They create something. They find such incredible resources of power within themselves. They change the world after that, or they give birth to 3 or 4 more beautiful children. It's different for everyone, but you need to find this detached witness within you. When Saturn is in Aquarius, and it will help you. This detached, almost scientific like observation, like you are stand here as a soul to observe an experiment. This is the attitude of Saturn in Aquarius. And no matter what craziness is happening and what fear is around you, you're still in that presence. That's how I see the highest manifestation of Saturn in Aquarius. And that's how I'll see, I promise you, a lot of you will start feeling this already now. You're going to start feeling, a lot of us already at this higher vibration, and you're allowed to feel hysterical and scared at times, but you'll notice the still center of detached observation. And that's one of the first steps. They say, when you realize this detached observer, this silent witness within, that's the first step towards spiritual awakening, which happens fully in Pisces, the next sign, but the psychological preparation for it is in the sign of Aquarius. So I wanted to give you this positive outlook. I can talk to you for hours, my friends. I have so much to tell you about the North Node moving into Sagittarius in Gemini, the South Node in Sagittarius, and everything ruled by Sagittarius gets very weakened because the ruler of Sagittarius till the end of the year is also in its weakest sign. So we're going to see the collapse of churches. Maybe it's something with the Catholic Church, the collapse of religions, the collapse of university systems that are happening, the collapse of education, high education, as we know, is very likely weakening from later on. Of course, travel, international trading and travel, but what will be enhanced with the Rahu, the North Node in Gemini, which is local trade rather international, which is the local mom and pop shops, which is the arts and crafts, which is the local town economy till the end of the year, which is learning as an apprentice, hands-on rather than with theoretical theories in universities, such things will be enhanced, but we'll speak about that further. And just to remind you, if you love learning astrology with me, and this was way more than astrology, what we did today, it was philosophy, it was me telling you my thoughts. But if you like this, I'm just giving you this month. So we're all sitting together at home. Let's learn astrology together. You can learn from my old courses. I'm putting them down, almost a lot of them, to 50%. And some of you, if they want, I can send you all my courses for a great deal for just $700, and they cost probably around $3,000-4,000. But since I won't be able to do anything else, since YouTube stopped monetizing my channel as well, I'm just as well, why not give a lot of my knowledge there much cheaper so people can learn. And by the way, when you're learning, I answer emails and everything. And let's support each other in the spirit. Please write below, if you like this video, write below me, what do you expect positive to happen? How do you foresee your future for the next 3-4 years? Do you see yourself, what end of the path do you see? What vibration do you see yourself going on? What are your goals? Fantastic times. Aquarius, we're entering Aquarius. What are your goals for? And I'm telling you, I'll start feeling much, the energy will start lightening up now. But what are your goals for the next 4 or 5 years? This is a time to set them in stone. Saturn is to set in stone, to build. Aquarius is your social and economical goals and dreams that you can manifest. And are you going to be on the side that is easily controlled and fearful, or you're going to take advantage of all the economic changes that are going to say? You're going to invent something that will make you even freer, that will make you even more aware. I mean, even in the darkest periods of suppression, there were people that took advantage of that and used it to raise themselves and those around them. So don't think we're easily defeated. I love y'all, and happy new year astrologically. Stay positive.